So welcome, Ben, to the Oxford Union. I hope you enjoy your evening here. I guess to kick us off, if you'd like to explain how you got involved in racing, was it always something you were interested in?
Yeah, I was one of those kids that sort of grew up staring out the window as the hedge was flying past, and I never used to think about racing. I was always used to imagine I was flying a fighter plane and that kind of thing. Grew up very much wanting to be a pilot, and when that wasn't possible because my eyesight wasn't quite up to scratch, the next best thing was, as I found out, the best thing for me was going racing, basically. So I was very lucky. My dad got me a day when I was 18 for my birthday, so I went to Silverstone, got completely madly hooked on this single-seater and never wanted to talk about anything else or do anything else from then on till now, really. Career-wise, that's always been the driving force. Just love the sense of speed.
And how then did it come about that you became the Stig?
It's a weird one. It's one of those things, like you watch Top Gear, and I grew up watching Top Gear. My dad used to have it on the telly, and since the 70s it was around time I was born. So but I suppose more in our generation it was on, and I saw this bloke in a black suit and I thought that looks like a really cool job, and I wrote in and sent my CV and blagged an interview, basically, which turned into an audition, and they gave me the keys to this Ford Focus and I had to blat it around the circuit, and my time was quicker than the Stig, and it seemed to be good timing because they were planning to kill him off on the HMS Invincible, bless him. So that was the end of the Black Stig, and I was hired as the White Stig. So it was this amazing opportunity, really, and I had no idea what would happen next, but it was a journey of 8 years, just an amazing job. So. And
how involved were you in the development of the persona of the Stig, the character of the Stig? Was that something you had a lot of freedom to do, or were you under a lot of direction and restriction? I mean, obviously the restriction of anonymity, but...
Oh, massively. Well, I wouldn't want to take any credit away from people like Andy Willman and Jeremy Clarkson, because they created the Top Gear format, and the Stig was part of it. I think originally they wanted to call it the Gimp, but Perry McCarthy refused to let them. So in a weird way, as much as those guys definitely created the concept, it is to a certain extent shaped by the person in it. I think that's inevitable. And when they handed me the overalls, I took one look at them. They were absolutely terrible. So I kind of threw them away and got my own suit made, which I think is essential for anyone playing the character of a sort of superhero, or whatever you want to call the Stig. I don't know what it is, but had to get some decent overalls sorted and then change the helmet. And for me, it was my first experience of TV, so very much I was led by the directors, and they had these fantastic directors that used to come up with the creative behind a lot of the shoots, as well as people like Willman at the top there shouting their commands down the food chain and coming up with crazier ideas for us to do. So, I'd like to think that I had a part to play in how it developed, and I very much enjoyed that. It was making a silent movie in my case.
And how well known was it that you were the Stig, or how well suspected was it in racing circles, in family life, friends and acquaintances?
Well, it got suspected to the point where it was kind of revealed, and that's when I realised it was time to go. But anonymity is definitely something you start with, and it only goes one way, and that's get on the way out. So at the beginning, it was just myself, Willman, the exec producer. He was a researcher at the time, but he became a producer, and my wife, basically. So you've got to tell her, because she's going to see the overalls on the floor and wonder what's going on. But over time, it does grow. But at the very beginning, I was incredibly stringent with it. Never took the helmet off, which continued to the end. But I used to wear a balaclava to work, so that even when I was close to where I was going to be working, in case someone tied up the car on me, and really lived that. And as people started to guess, you had to fend off. In your private time, you'd always be aware that someone might try and guess or put a rumour out there on the internet. But really, that first year especially, I'd say it was completely unknown. And then each year, you just lose a little bit, or someone guesses, and you make innocent mistakes, I think.
Were you ever particularly tempted to reveal who you were really, or to take the mask off? And I mean, when you met a particular celebrity, or when there must have been times when you were tempted.
Mostly, I just wanted to have a beer with the crew, which is really lame, but you'd finish work and I couldn't even initially couldn't even hang out with the crew and have a beer. So I used to just clear out my bags, it's very antisocial, and just go home. And people go, oh, there he goes again, so he's Mr. Antisocial. So it was really just isolated, and that was anything that I felt you couldn't engage as much with your mates, that you get to know these people, working the cameras and everything, but they never got to know you.
And it must have hurt you after 8 years of doing the job and sort of very loyally doing the job, that you were then faced with legal action, and I wonder if you could just go into a little bit about how that affected you and what you thought about it at the time and what you think about it now.
Well, the ending was horrible in a way. It was one of those things, it had come out in the press, everyone has their own view of this, but it really snowballed, in my opinion, from when the Radio Times published the most likely candidates. There's two of us for being the Stig, and one was knocking on a bit and much shorter than me, and one of them was me. So it was 50-50 which way you decided to go, and at that point, after that, 3 months later, it started to come out in various tabloids. They felt that threshold had been crossed, and I stayed on for 2 more years, but it became untenable. I knew I was going to be pushed out one way or the other, and I didn't really want to wait for that, so I gave my notice in and left under my own steam. But for that to result in a court case seemed extremely strange. I wrote my book because I didn't want to carry on lying about something that was all over Wikipedia and YouTube, and it was in the front page of the newspaper. I really wanted to kind of celebrate. I'd enjoyed my time. I thought, enough is enough. Let there be another Stig. Let them come in and do it. So going to court was a very unusual way to finish. It seemed almost like a Top Gear shoot gone wrong or something, or part of our sort of drama entertainment car show in a weird way, because we were all sat there in the coffee shop opposite the court talking to each other and then going in and doing battle. So it was a very strange thing. The nice thing is that within 12 months of all the aggro, we all got back together for a good cause with Help for Heroes and the Race to Recovery team, who have just finished Dakar, and it was really good to go and make up, because I worked with those guys for 8 years, and you fall out over something, but it's good to mend those bridges.
And what do you think of Jeremy Clarkson?
With a bit of hindsight and water under the bridge, I can't complain, in the sense that I had a great time working for a show that he helped create. I hope I contributed in a way that he appreciates in when he looks back on it. I haven't seen him since, so you never know. It could end up in a sort of Piers Morgan style fight, but I hope not. And I think we have a lot of shared interests with, we love cars. We have a lot of fun on the shoots and everything, and he is a good laugh. Like him or loathe him, and sometimes both in the same second. He's good fun.
Now, obviously, you now do stunts, stunt driving. Where did you learn a lot of the tricks of the trade for making that transition from simply trying to drive very fast to flip a car or smash a car or do whatever else to a car?
Yeah, well, my racing career's all been about not hitting stuff, and then you've got your filming where they say you to go and smack into something, so that takes a bit of getting used to, but it didn't take long. I quite enjoy it. The great thing with both sports, racing, movies aren't sports, but it's the collaboration and teamwork that is really cool, and you go and work with a big stunt team, and you've got these incredible talents from different walks of life, from bikes to fighting, gymnastics. And they generally try and pick the best in the world, and it's a real privilege to be able to join their ranks and try and keep up with them, which is pretty difficult. But it's great. And you're still pushing your skills to the maximum. It's a huge challenge, and that's what I'm about. It's a different kind of challenge to crossing the line first, which I'd say racing is more pure, but I enjoy both. So I'm very lucky to have had those careers.
Was it very different now working for big film and film directors and big productions versus being on Top Gear and on more of a sort of TV basis? Is there much of a difference in terms of your role, your involvement?
Well, the grounding of TV was brilliant because it was kind of guerrilla tactics. We would turn up at places. I remember when the presenters took over Parliament Square and the Tamil Tigers were protesting. So Clarkson waded in and took their banners down and started talking about his Lamborghini and etc. You do those shoots really, really quickly with a minimal crew, or go and take over a road and block it off and start skidding cars about. It taught me a lot in terms of how you orchestrate that. And I think that transfers really well to film, except you've got much bigger crews, loads more cameras, huge resources going at it, and those films have to be kind of timeless. So there's a lot more effort and energy spent in getting a very small piece of perfect footage as opposed to a show that might be a bit more forgiving, even if it's on Dave for the rest of your life, for the replays. So I think it was great grounding. again, small family team when we started Top Gear, and it was much smaller than it is now. And now it's this gargantuan Leviathan, you know, millions of viewers and millions of pounds of merchandising and all that stuff that goes with it. But it's still, I remember the origins being pretty small.
And you've possibly had two of the most enviable roles for a racing driver to possibly have, I guess. Would you choose Formula One over your job now?
Yeah, I would. I'd go race Formula One in a heartbeat. It's just the pinnacle of everything I've aspired to for such a long time, for 20 years. And I suppose, you know, it's such an ingrained thing in my DNA that, of course, I go and do that. But at the same time, I acknowledge that time's kind of been and gone. I love racing at Le Mans 24 hours. You need to, for Formula One, you've got GP2, your World Series, you've got to be at the top of your game, winning the races with a big sponsor probably to take you through. Whereas in my situation, I have a fantastic time doing what I do. I still love working on TV, work on these great movies, and really there's probably no better race than Le Mans when you're racing speeds of 220 miles an hour. In machinery, it's very similar to Formula One and very pioneering. V8 supercars in Australia, I'm not complaining with that at all. It's incredibly competitive. A lot of the drivers in both those series are as good enough for Formula One or have raced in Formula One themselves. So really, I suppose that's a pretty darn good way to make it.